Okay, so I've got the shell of the building starting to come together now, and what I want to do next is make the shop fronts. So I'm going to actually get some images of the site just to get you more familiar with it, so you know what I'm trying to make. Okay, so the area is Surrey Hills, and the building, I should know off by heart, but here it is, somewhere around here. That's not it. So it's down there, isn't it? This part, yeah. Teachers Federation, so it's late in the day. There's Pavot Street, that's too far, isn't it? Well, you guys should know, so where are we looking? What am I getting wrong here? It's further down, isn't it? There we are. Okay, but if you haven't already gone to look at your building, that's something you need to do. And so there we are. So there's the building, and with Street View, of course, we can get a nice view of it. So notice you've got these different shop fronts, right, which all have, well, similar framing and other things, but also some differences. So a really good instance where you can use curtain walls to get that. But what I want to do just before we go right into that detail is give you an overview of how the curtain wall tool works. And so just to the side, I'm going to draw a wall. So it's using the wall tool. And then over in properties, I'm going to scroll down using the type selector there. That's what that little thing's called, the little list. That's the type selector. And then I'll scroll down, and you'll see there are two default curtain wall types. I'm going to show you Storefront first. And so with Storefront, I'm going to change the height there because that's going all the way up to parapet. I'm going to change it back to just to level 1 for now. But that's all I'm going to change. And then I'm going to draw a curtain wall over to the side here just so that you can see what I'll get with Storefront. So as you can imagine, called Storefront. It is meant to be used for shop fronts and storefronts. Okay, so that's what you get. It's got this default framing pattern. And you'll see if we select that wall and go to Edit Type, where those settings come from, it's got this vertical grid pattern, which is 1500, so that's the spacing of the vertical mullions there. And then you've got horizontal grid, which is 2400, and you can see there that's the height of this mullion here. That's actually called a transom in real life, but in Revit all of the framing pieces are called mullions. And 2400. Yeah. So they're just the default settings. I'm not going to use those, but I just wanted to show you how that one gets made. So that's good. If you just want to do a quick wall, curtain wall with inbuilt framing, that's not a bad one to start with for certain things, but I'm going to delete those walls and then go back and draw some new walls, this time with the other one. So that's curtain wall 6mm thick glazing. Right, so as you can imagine, it's 6mm thick glazing. So I'm going to draw, again, some new walls, just anywhere. So these are plain sheets of glass. Now if you've drawn these before and looked at the corners, you would have seen there's a gap. Don't worry about that, it's meant to be like that. I'll show you in the plan as well so you can see what I mean. So they could cross over each other like that. Don't worry, that's meant to happen. And then looking down here, you'll see on this end there's a gap. Right, it's all to do with the fact that these are glass and the centre line of the wall is to one side of the glass. And you'll see when I put the framing on why it's like that, so don't worry. The joins seem a bit unusual at first, but once you've seen how it all works, it'll make more sense. So I've got those walls there, which, apart from the fact that they're glass and the connections are a bit strange, we go to shaded, they're just like any other wall. But the other difference is that you can't use doors and windows with them. So if I go and put a door, or try to put a door, it won't let me. Try to put a window, same thing, it won't let me. So you do those door and window openings quite differently to with a regular wall. Again, it all relates back to the construction, like most things in Revit. they have these tools set up for construction purposes. You make things the way they're built in real life. So it forces you to learn about construction when you use Revit, which is a really good thing, I think. And again, because it stops people just designing whatever they feel like instead of going and doing what they're supposed to, which is learn about the building industry and how things are built, and that determines how you design. You try to make up your own construction methods, then you're skipping 5,000 years of history, where people have worked out good ways of building things based on the technology we've got, and then you design based on that. So again, we've got these curtain walls, plain glass, nothing special. And then you'll see also on the architecture tab, you have these tools next to curtain system. Remember I said skip curtain systems for now, but remember next to that you've got the other tools that go with curtain walls. You've got curtain grids and mullions. So with the curtain grid tool, you can then put your own grids in. So notice if I move, I've just clicked curtain grid, nothing else. And if I move over any curtain wall on the edge, if it's a horizontal edge, I get a vertical grid line. In other words, top or the bottom. I can put my own grids in, vertical grids. And then if I go to one of the vertical edges, in other words, one of the sides, then I get a horizontal grid line. So that's all right. But then, what if I want to do more of an interesting pattern, like, one of my favourite artists ever? I'm sure you've all looked at him. He's a genius. I think he's one of the reasons we have modernism. Mondrian. Because the technology came about long before the look of modernism, and it was people like this who really gave us that look. And he's got all these amazing patterns just with rectangular patterns, really. So you can do patterns like that with curtain walls. So, instead of having grids that go all the way through, there's a few other options. So I'll go back a bit. So when you're using that grid tool, you can either set up the top there, instead of all segments, we can go one segment, and I can put grids in between, right, instead of having going all the way across. And that can give you some interesting results. Right, so we can get different patterns, and you can probably see already how we can start to get some door openings. Right. Okay, so that's one option. Or, say if you do have grid lines going all the way through and you want to break them up. So I'll just go back and put in another grid with the full side. Let's just do it on this one. Okay, so then say I want to go back and edit some of those grid lines and take some out. Right, so you can select the grids, and it's much easier if you select the grids before you put the mullions on. Once the mullions are there, you've got to use tab. But with the grid line without a mullion, it's fairly easy to select it. And then you get this option, add remove segments. And then I can take out individual segments, like that. Okay, so you've got lots of different options for adding and removing grid lines. And so maybe I'll just come back and put in one here, divide that model too. And maybe another one up here, multiple. There. So already we're starting to get an interesting pattern, just with a different arrangement of grids. Now, any of you who are thinking, do you know about the history of this art movement? The still? The Dutch just means the style, because they thought it was really cool, and it was the style. So that's what Mondrian did. He pretty much invented it, but then of course all the other smarties who came after him thought, why don't you just do some curves or some diagonal lines to break it up a little bit. He did do that eventually, and so people often ask me, so can I do diagonal lines from my grids, or can I do curves? Well, you can, but not with that tool. So if you want to do something more complex, then you have to look at some more advanced techniques. But there's a reason for that again, because when you're making a building, when you're doing facades like this, it helps if the lines are vertical and horizontal. Just think about the way a door or a window needs to work. If you've got a door with the sides not being vertical, imagine if you've got a door with a side that's at an angle, try opening that door and see how it works, and you'll see then why different angles and curves aren't used very much for doors and windows. It makes sense. Okay, so that's why. And anyhow, if you want to do complex shapes, you can, but I'll show you that later. That's a bit more involved. Okay, so we've got our basic framing pattern, and I think it's always amazing when you see how much you can do, looking at, the Genius Mondrian, just with those basic rectangular patterns. But it's mind-blowing. Have you ever seen his paintings in real life? And yeah, if you ever get to, I was very lucky. I've seen them a few times. And yeah, there's plenty of galleries that have them. And look closely. You'll see he actually did some very interesting things when you look close up. It wasn't just these very gritty sort of things. Anyway, I'll bore you with the whole theory about it later. So anyway, it's good to get information though from those things. Once you've got your pattern, and take your time with it, get it the way you want, you've got the mullion tool. So next to grids, on the architecture tab is the mullion button. Now, there are different mullions. You'll see there are lots of different mullion types loaded, and you can make even more yourself. But for now, I'll just leave it on that one, and make sure you know which one you're using. 50 by 150 is the default. You think that's a very big mullion? It's not huge, but it is pretty chunky. So 50 mil, that's, 5 centimetres. By 150, that's fairly deep, 15 centimetres. So it's a fairly chunky one, but for a large building, that makes sense. Okay, so I've got my mullion type selected, and then I can just pick grids. And how easy is that? We just go along picking any grid lines we want to use. You don't have to use them all if you don't want. And you can get something that looks believable in 3D, like it can be built. Right, so that's it. So instead of having to get a window family to be the size you need it to be, and think about all the different ways it would work in different situations, which is what you have to do if you're making a window family, you just make the grid the size you want, and the opening will fit inside it. So it's a really good system. And the only thing that's a bit confusing at first is how these corners work. Notice again how the corners look a bit weird. For that you've got corner mullions. And again, this all relates back to the way they're really built. So any that has corner in the name, I'm just going to use the quads. Now let's do something different for once. I'll do the L mullion, because they look a bit nicer. And it doesn't like me. So delete element, and let's do the quad. Quads are ugly, but they work. There we go. So notice the quad mullions, just fill in those corners, and then your corner joins will actually be alright. Okay, so far we've got really a few different elements already. We've got the curtain wall itself, then we've got the grid lines, which I showed you can draw yourself, but if they're under a mullion, what do you think we need to do to select it if it's not coming up? It's coming up there now, unfortunately, but say it's like that, and I'm getting the mullion, but I want the grid. I want to select the grid. What's the option key? Yeah, I want to edit it. So how do we get to it? How do we select it? Yeah, but it's giving me the mullion. So yeah, tab. So when you want to select objects and you've got a few things in the same spot, tab is your option key. So there, I've got the mullion. If I press tab, now it's showing me the whole wall. I don't want that. So I'll press tab again. And it's still giving me something because it's giving me a chain of walls. I don't want that either. So tab one more time. And finally, there's the grid. Now, I can see it there, it's that dashed line, but do you know another way that you can tell what it's highlighting? So always, if you're not sure, and this happens all the time with Revit, if you're not sure about something, have a look in the bottom left corner, and you'll see down there it says curtain wall grids, grid line. So we know it's a grid. Then I've still got to do one more thing, it's still not selected. So tab's the option key, it gives you options, but then you always need to click then to select the thing that it gives you, to select that option. Okay, so remember that, because a lot of people struggle using tab at first, and it's because I think they forget that you've got to click after it gives you the option, and then I might decide, well actually, I need a 5 metre gap between these two mullions, or two grids, so I'll type in 5,000, and it moves the mullion, extends this one, does it all for me just by moving that one grid line. Okay, so we've got, again, just going through the objects, so we've got the wall. The next thing was the grid, which you might need to use tab to select if you've put the mullions on. So what was the next object I showed you after the grid? The one I just mentioned? So so you've got the wall, that's one object. Then you've got tab will give you the grids quite often, so that's the next object. Then the other one, after that I showed you was the mullions. So they're yet another object. That's why curtain walls are a bit more involved than your regular walls, because they've got all these different objects built in. Mullions. So mullions in Revit just means all the framing pieces. If you know about the real words, this is technically a transom when they go across. But again, in Revit, they're all just called mullions. Okay, so the mullions are the framing pieces. And we can change them to different things. So we've got other types of mullions that I can load. Here we've got, say, the square mullion. Or the circular one. No, but I'll go back to the old one. So I've got the mullion. So what do you think then the other component might be? So I've got the wall, the grid, the mullion. What else can we see? The glass, that's right. So the glass in a curtain wall is the panel. So again, you can get that with tab. Now when you click there, it's going to select the wall. So often you've got to use tab to get it to highlight the panel, which again in this case is this one called Glaze. So that's a glass panel. But yeah, you've got a solid panel. And that's how you can again start to build up some patterns if you set different solid panels. And that can be an interesting thing. I think people just make them all glass, and that's pretty awful actually, usually, and makes it, usually way too hot on the inside as well. So you can have whatever material you like for the panels, just a matter usually of selecting them. And then I'll get this one again. Okay, so when you select a panel, probably the first time you need to go and load in a door or window if you want something other than just a solid or glaze. So edit type. Oh, and here I can show you the little problem with Revit. There's actually a bit of a bug in the program. It's been there for years, but they still haven't fixed it. When you go edit type the first time, this load button's grayed out. It's annoying. Once you've loaded something in, it'll work. It's just the first time. So it says, load, but we can't use it. So, if you go to the Insert tab, then Load Family. So you just got to remember the curtain wall panels, they all live in curtain wall panels. That folder there, curtain wall panels, and I'm just going to load any, it doesn't matter which one. So these are all doors that you might have seen before and wondered how do I use these things, because they don't work in a normal wall. They're just for curtain walls. So it doesn't matter which one you load. I'm just going to load this one randomly. So that's done. Now, watch what happens if I go back and try again, select the panel, edit type, and there's my load button. So it's just first time, and then from then on you can load them on the fly as you go. If I want to use the one I just loaded, if I go to the list here, it's there. So I'll load that, or I'll choose it. So there's my door, but that's quite a wide panel. So that door, even though I don't want the door, it's too big for this. This panel's too big for that door. So I'll select the panel again, back to edit type, and I want to get a new one, so I'll go to load, and then I'll choose one of the double doors. That's better. Okay, so that can maybe give some ideas how you can use these things for all sorts of different shop fronts. It's great for interiors. I've done them for offices, all the general managers and people, they want their office to be segregated. They want a separate office, but often it'll have glass partitions around it. And so this is how you do it. So for interiors, you can still use the curtain walls. They work really well. So I'll delete those, so I'll just do for demo. And then the interior walls, also not the interior walls, these walls that you've got for the facade, so you can set those up as curtain walls. But what do you need to do first? Pretty much, yeah. Well, that's right. You need to have that opening set up first. You need to know the size of the opening. So you're on the right track. So how do we do that? Back into my floor plan. So you need to know, firstly, I suppose, which side has the openings. So it's going to be, actually I won't go to wireframe, I'll just leave that in the line. It's going to be this side, that should be Mary Street, and then this side should be Reservoir Street. So maybe I'll start on Reservoir Street. Yeah, so I think I'm going to have to show you the edit profile as well. Have you done edit profile before? You haven't used that one? No? Okay, so I'll show you a good trick here. This is my west elevation, that arrow. So if you double click on that arrowhead, it'll open the view. I could just go to west in the project browser. So then just have a go at selecting that wall, not the pier, but the main wall that goes all the way along the building. And then we've got to make an opening. So I don't want to confuse things too much, but I'm just seeing where you're at. Have you used any of these opening tools on the architecture tab? Like wall opening? No? Good, okay, so we'll leave those for now. Okay, so if you start again just by selecting the wall, and if you're not getting it like me, see how when I click in the middle of the wall it's selecting it? If you're not getting that, make sure this option down here, which is select element by face, is turned on. Then you should be able to click in the middle of the wall and select it. Oh, that means your view is inside the building. So you can go back to the plan view and just move the view outside. But I'll show you that in a second. Yeah, you need to go back into your ground floor plan, probably. So I'll show everyone that actually, because it's going to be something that a lot of people might have. So in my ground floor plan, so there's my, there's the elevation view. So the elevation view is the other one. No, the one, yeah, that's it. So you've got that, but then, so that's the view. But then to see where the elevation's cutting, you've got to click on the arrowhead, and then you'll see this line. So make sure that line, when you click on the arrowhead, so you've got to click on the arrowhead. No, that's it. Yeah, and then find the line. So your line's still inside the building. So you've got to drag that line. Yep, that's it. And then have a look in your view. That's it. So that's good because it gives me a chance to check the measurement. So this is why it's good to have these drawings open in AutoCAD. And you can just measure straight off of them. Yeah, okay. So going back to the opening. So again, you select the wall to start. And this is one of the best ways. If you've ever wondered how to make an opening in a wall, I'm going to have to show you an extra step though. So the first thing, you need to select the wall and then in properties, change the base constraint to basement. It'll make sense later. I'm not going to explain why for now. Just do that. Yep. Before you cut the opening, really important that you change that base constraint to basement. Otherwise there'll be extra steps. Oh, you haven't made basement, so you have to go and make that level. Yeah, if you haven't made the basement level, yeah, don't forget about that one. That's really important. Yeah, so I'll give you a chance to do that. So you've got to make basement. And, oh, good, excellent, great. Yeah, so make sure you've got the height there. It's minus 4,000. Great. You'll see why in a second. When you do the opening, it just makes it easier if you take it down the basement first. Okay, so Okay, so yeah, so notice I'm in the west elevation. Yeah, sure. Oh, don't worry, that's fine. Yep, yep. As long as the plan is okay, then that's fine. So here, it's just that wall I've brought down. Eventually, you'll bring them all down, but for now, it's just that one. And then with the wall selected, then you go to Edit Profile, and you're going to get an outline of the wall. Right, so it's that magenta, sort of pink-looking line. And then I'm going to draw a rectangle. So you've got that draw panel. I'm just going to draw a rectangle in between the piers. Right, so going from the bottom left corner of that pier to the next pier on the right. But notice I'm not worried about the height because I need to come back to that. I'm just going to click a point on the other pier. And then we want to change this measurement, but before I change it, it's really important that you press Escape twice, cancel it, then select the line again, and then change the height. Right, to get it to measure from the right spot. And we'll make it 2200. So that's it. And then you can put in a couple more. You don't need to do them all because the last two are garage doors anyway, so you can just use copy. It's a good chance if you haven't done it this way before. Select the rectangle that you've just drawn once you've got it the right size, click copy, and you can then just go along snapping to each corner. So just do a few that are the right size, finish it, and see how it looks in 3D, and you should see that you've got then these openings. Maybe it's not a bad idea while you're at it to bring the other walls down. If it let you finish it, that's fine. Yep, it's fine. Yep. So I'm just here selecting the other three main walls so I can bring the base constraint of those down to basement as well. So we can see the full height. So that's it for the first part of the opening. Actually, that's going to come up more anyway later, but for now we'll keep it simple just so that you can go back to your plan now, see the openings, and then just have a go at drawing a simple curtain wall. So using the wall tool now, and I'll finish in a second, but I'll just do this last couple of steps. So with the wall tool, I'll choose curtain wall 6mm thick glazing for the wall type, and change the height option to unconnected. So leave it saying height. So that's really important. You've got to have that height option to choose unconnected. And then you can type in 2200. And again, just to keep it simple, draw over the centre line of the main wall from top to bottom. Sorry, wrong way, from bottom to top. And just do that inside each opening. If you can get that far, that would be great. So you can see there now, I've got glass infill panels inside each of those openings. And then maybe if you want to have a go at putting some grids in, you can try putting some curtain grids by eye inside those openings just to get an idea of some divisions. Don't worry about the measurements, it's just doing it very rough for now. So you can get that far, then you're doing well. But it's a good way just to get used to using curtain walls, especially in a shop front. Yeah, easiest to draw them in the plan though, in the ground floor plan. So anyway, I'll give some time to try that, and then we can put the other details in later. And it might give you an idea of some design options that you might have for your shop fronts, if you can get a pattern. And remember, sketching and model making is always the best way of coming up with these design ideas and just trying to put it into practice in Revit afterwards.